Hello, it is so good to be with you during the genealogy show. Thank you for joining us. My name is Diana Catlin, and I am passionate about family history research. For me, having a good time involves a graveyard, a camera, and a good story or mystery to unravel. I'm going to share my screen with you right now, and that should bring us up. I help others become aware of the research tools we have such easy access to now and how to dig deeper to find a juicy story. I also find it truly delightful to share the stories I find in my family tree with my grandchildren. Now, off to our mystery. Long ago, love was planted in my heart for an ancestor named Lewis LeFevre and his son, John Thomas. I didn't know anything more about them. There were no photos or newspaper articles at the time, yet my sister Mary had managed to create a mental image about them with only the information found in a couple of census records. That's certainly not much to go on. How long has Lewis been there waiting to be discovered? Over 40 years. When I finally began to dig into Lewis's life a little bit, I found I had so many questions and a lot of loose ends. So I introduced myself to him. Hello, Lewis. How do we learn more about you today? What are our questions? Were you born in Virginia? The only thing I know for certain at this point is that your son, John T., was born in Virginia. It's a possibility for you, but it's not certain yet. When is your birthday? It might be nice to celebrate it with you at a later time. Did you have any siblings, Lewis? Did you have a favorite one or one that annoyed you endlessly? Okay, Lewis, did you have a wife? Please tell me we can find a maiden name. Does her family have a story that will help us connect with you? But there was nothing obvious to be found. I found it interesting that there was absolutely no further information listed about him on any of my usual haunts. So I had to ask, where are you hiding, Lewis? I believed the best way to pursue information on Lewis was to learn more about his son, John T. As I looked over the sparse information on John T., my first question, based on the 1880 U.S. federal census, was, where is John T.? Elizabeth states that she is married, yet he isn't listed anywhere on this document. Okay, first I have a missing Lewis, and now his son too. Is this a family trait? Let's look at what we know. In 1870, John T. and Elizabeth were in Washington Township, Grant County, Indiana, with two little girls, Mary and Emily. Emily is my great-grandmother. In 1880, here's Elizabeth, listed as a 33-year-old female at home keeping house. There's Mary, listed as Molly, who is 14, Emily, listed as Emma, who is 11, and Lily, 8, all listed as students who attended school. R.V. Byron is 6 and Etta is 2. Elizabeth is married, and of course, no spouse listed. This is why I asked about John's whereabouts. The single question led to the discovery of John LeFevre with a different spelling in the state penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. What? No way. My second great-grandfather in prison? My first reaction stated emphatically that's impossible, followed almost immediately by a twisted sense of humor asking, ooh, I wonder what he's in for. John's name was spelled with a B instead of a V on the penitentiary records, yet I knew it was him. I had this gut feeling that this was our John T. However, since you can't leave research to gut feelings, I knew I needed to work this out. I called the Kansas Historical Society, and they gave me the following information. In the Series 1 records, it indicates incarcerated on the 25th of June, 1879 for forgery in the 3rd degree out of Labette County, inmate number 1949. Okay, so now John T. really has my attention and questions flood my mind. The 1880 census tells me that Elizabeth and family reside in Liberty, Labette County, Kansas. This John is from Labette County, so we are getting warmer. Why? How did this happen? I wonder what the story is. What was the motivation? More and more questions. What is forgery in the 3rd degree? I never thought I'd be looking up something like this. A person is guilty of forgery in the 3rd degree when, with intent to defraud, deceive, or injure another, he falsely makes, completes, or alters a written instrument. I'll bet there's quite a story still to be found here. How did he get caught? Were there any accomplices? Seriously? What about Elizabeth? How is she handling everything? Is she okay? Is the farm still prosperous? And the children, they're so little. How are they dealing with this? Do they get teased at school? Through ancestry DNA connections, I met a second cousin who shares this ancestor with me. She found the following article in the Parsons Weekly Sun, dated the 21st of June, 1879, and shared it with me. Oh, it led to even more questions. John LeFevre, a well-known citizen of Liberty Township, is under arrest for forgery. We are not in possession of all the facts, but have pretty reliable reports for this much. He was arrested on complaint of Isaac Parley, and the sum of his forging amounts to upwards of $800. Oh, wait a minute. Isaac Parley? I recognize that last name. It's Elizabeth's maiden name. Is Isaac related? In the small town of Liberty, Kansas, there simply weren't that many Parleys there. Could it be a coincidence? No, unfortunately it isn't. Isaac is Elizabeth's first cousin. This brought me temporarily to a loss for words, really. Family drama, trust, betrayal, courtrooms, and prison. I just wasn't expecting that. Not in this first deeper dive. Can you imagine what this may have done to family relationships? In 1880, Elizabeth is 33 with her 5 children. Isaac remains with his wife Jenny, enumerated in the same district with John T. and Elizabeth. Isaac is 34 and Jenny is 28. And Isaac's mother, Catherine, is still there, rearing Isaac's younger sister, Lucy, who is 15. There are other relatives living nearby. I can just imagine the conversations between the children. Did they play together anymore, or was that too uncomfortable? And was it hard for Elizabeth to visit her Auntie Catherine now? The ripples this created not only in John T.'s life, but in multiple generations is heart-wrenching. There's so much more to Isaac's story, but that's a tangent we won't take today. Needless to say, John T. was sentenced in 1879 for 3 years to pay his debt to society, and that's why he wasn't on the census with his wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was having a difficult time after John was sent away. He'd been gone 18 months when a request for pardon was made to the governor of Kansas, John P. St. John. The petition was made by the county attorney, the clerk of the district court, a county clerk, a state attorney, a deputy county clerk, and more. It read as follows. We, the undersigned, represent that at the May term of the Labette District Court in the year 1879, John T. LeFevre was convicted on a charge of forgery and sentenced to imprisonment in the state penitentiary for a term of 3 years. That the best interests of his family demand his return to them, and the punishment already received by him is doubtless adequate to offense, and we therefore pray that you grant his immediate pardon as a matter of humanity and justice. It was dated the 5th of December, 1880. On the 2nd of March, 1881, John Thomas came home. I am certain the homecoming was precious. We have newspaper articles rounding out more of his life. In September of 1883, the society pages mention his pleasant visit to the newspaper with a friend. We know he had an accident in 1887 that caught his hand in a threshing machine and badly damaged it. He didn't lose it entirely, but it did cripple that hand, and that did not slow him down. He continued to be an enterprising farmer, and he bought and sold real estate. In June of 1889, he was out trading for a threshing and traction engine to help the farmers in his community harvest their wheat more effectively. It raised the morale of the entire county. Often, after a bad mistake is made, rumors will continue to circulate. On the 9th of January, 1890, the Parsons Weekly reported that Elizabeth had been in town and squashed the rumor that her husband had skipped the country, leaving behind unpaid bills. He had gone to Virginia to visit his sick sister, who then had passed away, and he would return home soon. The county was probably still wagging their tongues over the Isaac Parley drama of 1888, in which Isaac did skip the country to Old Mexico, leaving many creditors to mourn his departure. Combine that with the family connection to Elizabeth and John T.'s time in prison, and some folks still thought they had a story to gossip about. John returned to Kansas the 26th of January, 1890, and his denial to rumors of desertion was printed in the 30th of January the same year. John passed away in 1893. His obituaries state that John T. LeFevre, an old citizen of Labette County, died at his home in Parsons last Thursday after a short illness. He was an old soldier and took an active interest in affairs pertaining to the boys who wore the blue. Also, he was a member of the AOUW, which means Ancient Order of United Workmen, and his widow will be provided for. He is buried in the Spring Hill Cemetery in Parsons, Labette County, Kansas. I truly hope he rests in peace. I was so thrilled with what I had learned that I just enjoyed it for a few years, frankly, not researching on Lewis's story at all. During that time, I put in countless hours of research on other projects. It's been a delightful journey, but poor Lewis was still waiting for me. This summer, I visited my sister Rosa in Maryland. What a trip of discovery that turned out to be. Oh my, she took me on a road trip and showed me how she was unraveling some of our mother's heritage. It was incredible. I had no idea that many of the place names on the Maryland map belonged to my ancestors. I had no idea about a lot of that personal history, and it was eye-opening and inspiring. Then she asked me, "Do you have anything you're researching on our line, Diana? It's nice that you help so many others, but your own family tree needs you." And she had teased me with this question and an enormous grin several times on that trip. While we were out looking at historical tombstones, I remembered Lewis. That's when she asked me, "Do you know how close we are to Frederick County, Virginia? We could go look at a few things if you want." My sister reignited the fire to search for more information. The questions returned louder than ever before. Lewis, we need to find you. Did you ever marry? Maybe this time we could find your parents? In all the searching we did for your son, John, nothing new came up about you. Let's go check out the 1850 census one more time. Lewis and 6-year-old John T. are found living with their family in Stevensburg, Frederick County, Virginia, enumerated on the 15th day of November. This is wonderful. We see that Lewis's wife is Anne. We also see that John T. has a brother named William, and also living in the household is a woman named Margaret Minnis, and the land value is listed beside her name and not Lewis's. Now this is very odd. So the question becomes, who is Margaret? And is she related to any of them? Looking at the 1860 census, they are still together as a family, living in Stevensburg, Virginia. Listed is Lewis and Anne, John T., William, George, David, Mary, and Samuel. The land is now listed in Lewis's name, and Margaret is not there anymore. I wonder what became of her, and we still don't know who she was. And of course, during the creation of history, war came to America and threatened to tear the young country apart. Lewis and John T. were both involved as Confederate soldiers. My sister and I will dive deeper here to discover their story as it pertains to their place in that part of history. For now, it's enough to know that they were involved. By 1870, the war had been over for 5 years, and both households had moved. John T. isn't with them anymore because this is where he had moved to Indiana. Lewis has moved to a town which is not easy to properly pronounce. How would you say this town's name? We were wondering about this and trying all kinds of possible variations. Feel free to give it a try. Was it Opequan or Opequan? No, you sure? Oh, I laughed with my sister. Do you want one more guess? A very kind local lady took pity on us and helped us learn this word. Opequan. Yep, that's right. It still took us a while to wrap our tongues around this one as we kept searching for more about Lewis. There was a document listed on ancestry.com that came to our attention. I know it had been there a few years, but it didn't really resonate until this summer's search in Virginia. It gave us a stepping stone with which to move forward. It stated that Lewis was an orphan, and it stated that he was an orphan of John LeFevre. Now, this is where so much excitement began. Oh my goodness, wow, did we just find Lewis's father? Oh, that would be so cool, what a find. And on we bubbled with the possibilities, even though we didn't have any sources or any proofs. The idea was intoxicating. The document also states that there's a guardian. So we began to search for John, hoping that there would be a will or papers or cemetery records. We found John in an 1810 U.S. federal census. His household is enumerated with 5 children under the age of 16, 2 adults over 25, making 7 in all, and 6 enslaved persons, which totaled 13. In this census year, he is residing in Pewtown, Frederick County. Pewtown was established in 1798, and it later became Gainesboro. In 1820, he's listed in Front Royal, Virginia. He only claims 6 persons in his personal household, along with 6 enslaved persons for a total of 12. Let's take a look at the proposed family tree. We start with John T. We know Lewis is his father, and we have a document that states Lewis is John's orphan. We have a marriage record dated the 1st of October, 1840, when Lewis LeFevre marries Anne Kessler or Keeler. We also have a marriage record for John LeFevre and Mary Polly Kennan on the 26th of December, 1795. I decide to take a guess at John's age, and I think he may be 25 when he marries Mary. That means he'd be nearly 48 when Lewis was born. That also means Mary would possibly be about that old. It wasn't easily adding up for me. While there was a possibility for them to be Lewis's parents, I began to feel it was very slim. What else could I look for to find something more concrete? I was blessed to find a very helpful lady in the Stuart Bell Jr. Archives, which is a local history and genealogy center that's jointly operated by the Handley Regional Library and the Winchester-Frederick County Historical Society. She led us to the Chancery records there. This was a new area for me, but not for my sister. We searched for John's name, just in case he was in there. Would you look at that? There is a listing for John LeFevre. We dashed for the microfilm to look it up. The folks at the archives by now were as excited as we were. Legibility became a minor obstacle. We put a copy on our flash drive and just hoped when we got it home, it would be more clear on our larger monitors. It worked remarkably well. We were able to read the following. To the wonderful court of the county of Frederick in Chancery, sitting respectfully, complaining, shineth unto your worship your orator Alfred LeFevre, one of the children and heirs at law of John LeFevre, deceased, late of said county, that the father of your orator died intestate, leaving a tract of land in said county. To the end, therefore, that a division of the real estate may be made according to law among the widow and the heirs at law, your orator prays that Mary LeFevre, widow and relict of said decedent, Charles LeFevre, Asbury, Garrett, and Eliza his wife, late Eliza LeFevre, and Lucy, Susan, and Hamilton, children and heirs at law of said decedent, and Lawrence Lewis LeFevre, only child and heir at law of Thomas LeFevre, deceased, another heir of said decedent, may be made, parties, dependents to, and the rest has a few blank spaces that we're still working out. Just a moment. In what we were able to decipher, it mentions Lewis's full name, Lawrence Lewis LeFevre. That bit about Lewis being an only child of Thomas, another heir of said decedent, we literally just had to take a breather and think about that for a day. Then, when we sat down to read it again, hoping to understand more and to fill in more holes, it was as if everything was clearly illuminated and we understood with amazement. Lewis wasn't John's child orphan. Lewis was John's grandchild orphan because his father Thomas had already passed away. Family groups were rearranged. Familial relationships were in proper order, all defined by a legal court document. Once that happened, more and more pieces began to fall into place. The legal issues and family drama we had just waded through were taking place in 1829. In 1830, we find Mary LeFevre mostly alone, listed with only 2 other females in her household. They are found in the Eastern District, Frederick County, Virginia. So where was Lewis in 1830? His father Thomas died much too young, and Lewis was named an orphan. But where in all of this craziness is Lewis's mother? Is he really an orphan? Was he required to live with the LeFevre family and his grandparents? No, John had died too, and he wasn't with his grandmother. Oh, I just had to search for his mother now. We're going to sum up the information on Lewis's mother because we did find her. In 1850, Lewis was living with someone named Margaret. Remember her? We decided to look her up, and she turned out to truly be his mother. She was born Margaret Kerfoot. The milestones we have documented in her life are these. She was born about 1795 in Virginia. Her dad died in 1816 when she was about 20 years old. She married Thomas LeFevre the 16th of December, 1818 in Frederick, Virginia. Their son, Lawrence Lewis LeFevre, was born about 1819. Thomas passes away. We don't know where, when, or how just yet. She married Andrew Pittman the 8th of September, 1829. Now I have an answer to Lewis's whereabouts in 1830. I believe he was enumerated with the Pittman household. Since the 1830 census records only, state heads of households, I had to conclude that he was there by his age group. There was one white boy listed between the ages of 10 and 14. It fits beautifully. Shortly thereafter, Andrew passes away. There are some online ancestry trees that mark his date of death as the 15th of September, 1838, but I have yet to find a death record to verify that, so we're still looking. Margaret marries John P. Minix on the 11th of May, 1840. There is a legal document which states parameters of separation for John P. Minix and Margaret's estates. They appear to be remaining married, but living separately. It's an absolutely unusual document. Every time we read it, we get more information from it. Her will was written in 1849, and it was filed with the Frederick Court and possibly Clark County Court as well, which it states within the document. Her will names Lewis L. LeFevre as her son and heir. It also mentions that if he dies, her inheritance will be divided among his heirs. In 1850, she lives in Stevensburg, Frederick, Virginia, with her son Lewis, daughter-in-law Anne, as well as her two grandsons, John T. and William. In 1860, she lives in Stevensburg and is listed as head of household. Her occupation is housekeeper. The value of her real estate is $1,200, and she's also listed as male. She is one amazing, unique woman for the time frame that she lived in. Margaret passed away sometime before April of 1869. Her will was proven in court by two of the three men who originally helped her write it back in 1849. The third man, Mr. Chipley, had already passed away. Oh, more family drama. In 1869, so much seemed to be going on in the courts. This message to the sheriff states that he must summon Lewis L. and Anne E., his wife. There's initials for G.A., D.L., M.D., A.V., S.R., J.A., and Susan LeFevre to appear in the clerk's office at the circuit court the first Monday in October to answer a bill in chancery against them, which was filed by J.T. and W.H. LeFevre. I recognize many of the initials as J.T.'s siblings. However, we will start another research project to define all of them very specifically. Again, another summons on the 12th of October, 1869. They needed to appear the first Monday in November, apparently to answer more chancery issues. Lewis isn't waiting for us to find him anymore. It's been such a thrill to meet him, to learn about his family, his parents, his grandparents. It was quite something to see his death record. Lewis died the 1st of December, 1890, near Stevens City. He died of dropsy. Dropsy was a term used to describe generalized swelling and was synonymous with heart failure. It lists his age as 71 years, 11 months, and 12 days. Oh, we might actually get a birthday out of that. The death record also states who provided this information. Lewis's son Jackson signed for him. And on a side note, Jackson had to sign for his brother Samuel, who also died that year. I do still have questions. If I could ask Lewis in person, I would say, Lewis, can we nail down a birthday, please? Oh, and what about your son Ashbury? There are records that state he exists, yet he was never on either the 1860 or 1870 census. So where was he? Does your family just have a habit of disappearing, or is it a generational tradition with you people? Yes, sometimes I do get that fresh with my ancestors. When we began to dig for information about Lewis, this was everything we had. It looks a little sparse, doesn't it? It was minimal on both of these men. We discovered a great deal about John Thomas LeFevre and a life filled with purpose, mistakes, and fulfillment. Interestingly, in everything we learned about John, there wasn't much said about Lewis. We'll have to go back to the Handley Library and search the county newspapers there. Those do not appear to be online yet, and I'm looking forward to my next road trip. Next, in our search, we found Lewis's wife, Anne. Then we thought we'd found our orphan's father, John, and his wife, Mary, which it would have been wonderful, but that wasn't correct. We had to dig deeper into chancery and court records to confirm that the family tree still needed that overhaul. Then, because Thomas's brother Alfred felt that he needed legal help to dispose of the family's assets in a more timely manner, the court records listed his brothers and sisters, including Thomas and heirs. The tree blossomed into its more correct form with the addition of Thomas, who died too soon. Next, on our family history treasure hunt, we discovered Lewis's mother, Margaret Kerfoot. What a life she led! It wasn't an easy one at all. According to her will of 1849, it appears Lewis is her only son and heir. We added 6 siblings for Thomas, which expanded the family tree in such a remarkable way. We learned that Margaret's father was John Samuel Kerfoot, and he married Elizabeth Chipley. Remember that name? We have fantastic potential on those lines to learn more about ancestors who fought in the American Revolutionary War. We have no idea just yet who John's parents are. We'll be digging more fully into the records of Virginia and Maryland as we seek to find further clarity into their lives, their hopes, their dreams, and their accomplishments. These are ancestors on my father's side of the family, and they appear to be very involved in taming the wilderness that was Virginia, Maryland, and Kansas. As I think back on this summer with my sister and her research on our mother's side, it occurs to me that we may find our lineage having more interaction with each other historically. We just have to reach back into the 1600s, open that window, and take a look around. Oh yes, I think that's the joy of this thing called research. Every single record we find seems to spark at least 10 times as many questions, and yet we never tire of the hunt. Thank you so much for allowing me the space to share this exciting adventure with you. It's been a trail of discovery filled with both frustration and joy. Until next time, I wish you the very best in your family research. Bye now.